What's up, YouTube? Today I wanted to talk about spirit guides. And to kind of preface, in Surah Al-Ra'id, in verse 11, there's Allah talks about in the Quran about how there's angels put before you, behind you, and essentially they're there to protect you. And to delve into what that means, a lot of the sheikhs and the scholars will say that you're if you're in dangerous situations, like you're driving your car and you think you should have died but you didn't, those angels were the ones protecting you. And so I feel like that's as deep as the Quran goes into talking about spirit guides, but here I kind of wanted to break down exactly what they are. And I know it's kind of a new age thing, but it goes a lot deeper than that. And so essentially, what are spirit guides? Well, we know that Allah assigns us angels, and so the concept of angels, in the holy books, when you kind of interpret it can also mean messengers, because angelos is a Greek word for messenger. Um, so in my opinion, it could mean that these are also ancestors. These are these are people who are alive before. Um, you know, the there's a lot of in my opinion, it can just be more than just angels. Because ultimately, I mean, when we die and we're soul, we could just be considered light at that point. We're just energy. We're not a physical body. Um, and so now I wanted to kind of go into the personal experience regarding that. And so I remember early on, I had a tarot reading, and I didn't, I wasn't like very big into it. And I know one of the things that was brought up to me was I was told that my grandpa follows me. And it was a card with a man on a white horse. And then I know one time my sister, she was really young, my younger sister, and she had a cough, and she woke up and her cough was gone, and she said, I had a dream that Cito, that means grandpa, my grandpa, she said my grandpa came down on a white horse and took away her cough. Um, and following that, one of the spiritual people I met, um, even went further into that, confirming what I was told before. Now, again, none of these people met each other, so for them all to say the same thing, it has to mean something. Who told me my grandpa, follows me, and essentially, what kind of happened was I walked in to his place, and people who are mediums, as they call them, and I wanted to link someone by the name of Matt Fraser. He's the Long Island psychic or Long Island medium. He does a lot of live, readings where he connects with people's spirit guides or their ancestors. I mean, and he's legit because he just has people go to his show, and he does it live. He does it. He finds people's ancestors and communicates with them live. He's done it on interviews. So that's someone I would recommend. He's got a YouTube channel that you can go deeper into that if you're interested. But this guy that I went to was similar to that, and when I walked in, he saw my grandpa. Now he also, regarding the angels, which we can confirm with the Quran, for me he saw two angels, one that we're all familiar with, which is Jibril, and then the other one, which maybe we're not all familiar with, which is known as Metatron. Um, and you can look more into that. People say it was Enoch or Idris or Enoch. That's just how you say it in the different languages. But from Islamic perspective, his name is Idris. In the Quran and in the Bible, it says he was raised up and God took him. So he's one of those people that skip. One of the few people that really skipped the whole barzakh and everything like that and went straight to the heavenly realms. And they say he almost became like an angel form. One thing to keep in mind is just because Jabril is following me, or Metatron, doesn't mean I'm the only one that Jabri is following, or the only one Metatron's following. These angels, obviously, they can be a million places at once, right? I mean, they're angels, right? So the laws that humans follow don't apply to them. Um, and so those were the main ones. Also, my sister passed away, and she essentially became a guide for me. He showed up I mean, she showed up, my sister showed up to this guy, after she passed away. Um, I had a couple other gifted people basically reiterate the same thing. Um, and So they're out there, and so what's really the point of spirit guides? Well, I think it's just kind of like what people don't understand. So when it comes to Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and all the other prophets, peace be upon them, um, there was times when the prophet and Jibril were just friends, right? They would just talk to each other, just as friends would talk to each other. There was advice that Jibril gave to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and it wasn't divine revelation. It wasn't directly from God. Although you could say everything is directly from God when you really break it down. But it was just kind of like the same way your friend, maybe let's say you have a wise friend talking to you. And so that's kind of like what they are, they're kind of like helpers and assisters. And so I think with a lot of the religious people, they tend to think like, oh, well, God does everything. Well, why you're probably talking to a jinn, or you're probably talking to a this. Okay, here's the thing. I mean, not everything is a jinn. Not every, and even if something is a jinn, I mean, what does jinn mean? Um, it can mean a lot of different things, and not all jinn are bad. And we have specific prayers that remove ourselves from bad jinns or from negative entities and stuff like that. And I mean, I've done a ruqyah before on people, or an exorcism. I mean, these things, once you say, these type of jinns, once you say prayers, or you pray or stuff like that, they can't really associate with you after that. I mean, it's like them living in hell. I mean, they don't want to live in hell. When you're near if a bad jinn is attached to you and you say a prayer, or you go to the masjid or whatever, it's like they're burning inside. They can't handle that. But anyways, it's the same concept of saying, when you look at like the Surah of Thunder, there's a prayer in the Quran called Thunder, and it talks about how the angels, they move even the clouds, or they control the thunder, or they control, the waves, or they control the sailboats, the wind, right? Why would God have an angel to do a specific task? I mean, that's a good question, really, if you think about it. But at the end of the day, it's like that's true. We can't deny that God has those things happening. So when people question, well, why would God assign you like a helper? Okay, I mean, it's the same question as saying, why did God assign an angel to control the clouds? I mean, he's still controlling them, he assigns them. It's the same way as, there's a concept in spirituality, in Hermeticism, it's called as above, so below, which is another word of saying the same things that kind of happen in this realm and earth kind of happens in the heavenly realm. So it's almost like saying, who's the boss, right? If somebody owns a company, who's the boss? Okay, there might be a security guard, there might be an accountant, there might be a marketer, there might be a delivery driver, right? But there's a CEO, and then someone might say, well, who's really controlling everything? It's the CEO. But it's kind of the same concept, I guess, with God. I mean, he's got helpers that he assigns, and it's technically him doing it. So, don't question and say, well, why wouldn't God just be doing this, or why are you making up this, or what if it's a jinn? You don't know what the hell you're talking about. And either open up your mind or just shut up, don't speak. It's like saying within the Quran, it says, and I just mentioned the verse and I mentioned the prayer. It says that God assigned his angels to protect us, um, and basically they stop us from dying until our destined time that God set forth for us to die is supposed to happen. So I mean, could someone say, "Well, that doesn't make sense. Why couldn't God just protect us?" Well, He is. I mean, it's you're questioning things that human beings aren't meant to understand. Some things are. It just is what it is. Um, and so, how does this apply to you? Well, when it goes to astral projection, or it goes to dreams, or even talking to the dead video that I had, um, this is where spirit guides can be helpful, right? There wasn't prophets that could talk directly to God. Basically only Moses could, and it wasn't even directly. The concept of speaking directly to God. It's almost like us as humans, we can't even handle that. So you kind of have to meet that middle ground, and that middle ground could be your spirit guides, it could be your ancestors, um, and so, when you get into that astral projection realm, you can communicate with them better. You can talk to them better. Um, you know, do I think people should pray to them? No. Do I think people can ask them for assistance? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's this, it's like saying, well, why don't you just ask God for assistance? Yeah, I agree. You should always pray to God. I mean, don't worship anything else other than God, but does that mean you can't ask your mom or your dad for assistance? Does that mean you can't ask an older brother for assistance? Right? It's the same concept. It's just kind of like talking to a friend, right? Could Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam talk to, God basically whenever he wanted? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there was times when he, there were certain instances that happened in his life, and then God created a revelation in the Quran to specifically address his concerns. An example of that was when a lot of the pagans would make fun of the prophet because he didn't have a revelation for a long time, and they started to say, "Oh, God forgot about you. God forgot about you." And he made and there was a revelation following that that says, "Hey, I'm here. I never forgot about you." God saying that, and that's what always makes me cry, just because it's like just really sad that people would say that, but also it just shows that like how much God loved him, and it's just a vulnerable thing. So it always makes me really sad whenever I read that. People, you know, insinuated that Aisha, they made a rumor that she was talking to another guy or having an affair or something, and then God, addressed that. There's a lot of things that God addressed, but it had to be through revelation. It wasn't like he directly talked to the prophet, and that's where having those angels came in. And we don't know how many spirit guides the prophet talked to, right? I mean, the Quran isn't an autobiography about the prophet's life. It's just literally him repeating what he was told to say. And what he was told to say was something that was for the whole world. It wasn't for a niche, group of people. Um, so, how do you connect with them? I'm sure people can connect with them with dreams. Getting into that meditative state, people can connect to them. You can ask them questions. The interesting thing is people are kind of assigned spirit guides based on their life path and their destiny is. So for me, having Jabril is that messenger. Jabril is kind of that teacher, and then here I am, making videos, trying to reach a large audience, trying to teach people, trying to be that quote unquote messenger. Metatron is seen as the king of the angels, the highest of the angels. What does that mean for me? Well, time will tell. Maybe I'll get into a higher position in society. It's related to the mystics. I mean, that's kind of what I'm talking about now is mysticism. So there's a lot of aspects of what that could, apply to. People are assigned certain spirit guides. Um, there's some people who can help you connect with those specifically. You can, if you want to get more information, watch someone like Matt Fraser out there. The Quran confirms that angels are assigned to us. Um, and so yeah, just know that you're never alone. You know what I mean? Connecting and be aware that there are angels following you. There are ancestors and spirit guides. Ancestors and deceased family members, deceased friends, even pets. All right, who follow you. And Matt Fraser is interesting because he's connected with a lot of people's pets. So it's one of those things where treat every living thing, even animals, with respect. Um, and your loved ones who pass away, they're never really gone. And if they've had mental issues, let's say, because I had an uncle who passed away who was estranged from his family. People, when they get to the other side, then they kind of, those issues drop off, and then they start to see, oh, these people tried to help me and I pushed them away, so they'll be closer to you. Your animals don't understand why you don't want them to jump on the counter and eat human food that could be poisonous to them, or why you gave them a procedure, why you disciplined them. But when they get to the other side, they start to see, um, and so that's an interesting fact too. Um, yeah, and so it's one of those things, try to connect with them, get into that meditative state, whether you're in the prayer, close your eyes while you're in your prayer, spend more time in your sujood or when you're down here, and whether you're not Muslim or not, doesn't matter. I mean, just get into that meditative state and try to connect with them. But just be aware that you're really never alone. So an interesting concept out there, but something that I wanted to talk about. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching my video, and please subscribe.